he given Jimmy Jackson, but this is what he had to say regarding. So I just brought up Asia, I just brought up Caitlin. This is what he had to say about the two of them on the Rich Eisen show.
Athlete of the Year. Congratulations to Caitlin Clark for being named Time Athlete of the Year. I get why people are so upset. I'm a basketball player and a basketball fan. There's a lot of dynamics and a lot of layers to this thing when it deals with Caitlin Clark. But I will say that this is just my opinion. It's certain people, I don't care if you're black, white, Spanish, from Europe, it doesn't matter. That had it, that draws something, okay? And Caitlin is one of those. It's the reason why Steph Curry, who may not be the best player, okay, in the NBA, but he draws different. He draws different. He can be marketed differently than other players. And some players who may be considered better, maybe Kevin Durant. But the market, to market Kevin Durant is a lot different than marketing Steph Curry. People resonate with Steph Curry a lot more than a KD. Now, that may be KD's personality, okay? He doesn't really care. I'm just using KD as an example of a player that physically is, I think, a better overall player than Steph. But Steph, from a marketing perspective, is more valuable in terms of marketing and what he brings to the table. And that's what I see with Caitlin Clark. Caitlin may not beat, A'ja Wilson is the best player in the WNBA, but Caitlin is more marketable because people tend to resonate. I don't care, black, white, whatever it may be. Now, there is a race component to it. It always will be in some regards, okay? But the player itself, the person, what she was able to do, how she resonated, how she drew eyes to the TV. I don't agree with the Mystics owner saying that the whole WNBA should have been named up, because that's not true. The whole WNBA benefited this year from the viewership increase because of the excitement between Angel Reese and also Caitlin Clark. But from a pure marketing perspective, Caitlin Clark was it.
So what are your thoughts about that? And then I kind of give mine.
Why don't you give your thoughts first?
All right. So my thoughts were, and we had this debate off screen, but I think about, so first of all, people say A'ja Wilson's boring. I don't think that at all. So I'm going to stay there. I don't think that at all. I don't think A'ja Wilson's boring. I think she's probably an enjoyable player to watch. And again, if you're in like basketball culture, if you're really into the game of basketball, you understand what she's doing historically has never been done. And for a casual fan, and this is where I'm going to start to pivot, for a casual fan, it's easier to, and especially if you're a basketball player that's just kind of starting in the game, it's easier to emulate Caitlin's game than it is A'ja's game. Why? Most people on earth are not 6'4", 6'5", like A'ja Wilson is. And especially if you're speaking about women, right? More people, just in height alone, they resonate with Caitlin because she is a shorter player, right? She's less physically imposing than A'ja is, right? So the two things, stylistically, it's easier to shoot. It's not easier to shoot a three, but it's more fun to shoot a three than it is to shoot layups. And people casually want to see somebody just shooting from three versus somebody making layups or dunking, which A'ja can do. Now, this brings me to another point which kind of Jim spoke about. He spoke about Curry and Kevin Durant. I'm going to speak about, and this was the whole argument when LeBron started to he didn't lose popularity, but when Steph Curry started gaining a lot more people, especially just casual fans, related with Steph a lot more than they did with LeBron. Why? Because it's easier. Again, most people cannot emulate LeBron's game. He is 6'9", 250 pounds. The best player in the league, and he can do everything on the court. It's like Satoru Gojo. You're not going to be able to mimic a person that's like literally just one of one versus somebody who's 6'3". He's less physically imposing in stature, and his greatest weapon is a shot that most people can shoot at any given time, which is the three-pointer. Now, the question is, can you shoot it as prolific as Steph can? And the answer is no, because he's generational in his own right. But the same argument can be, so the thing I don't like is when people say, oh, it's just boring, this and that. There's the other thing too, because I'm like, when it comes to Clark and Wilson, they both put their heads down, and it's not like either of them are really in the spotlight as much. Like, once the game is over, they're not like really doing too much outside of the game of basketball. Like, neither of them are Angel Reese when it comes to like just being out there in the forefront of the spotlight. So like with that alone, I'm like, they both are like workhorses who put their heads down and they go play basketball and then they go home and they live their lives. Yeah, they might have some candid moments where they're being funny, etc. But they're not. It's not like they're Angel, where Angel is like more extroverted and she's really more out there. And there's nothing wrong with that as well. Don't get that twisted. But it's like they share some similarities. This is funny why he brought that up with this argument about them two being rivals. So I just think it's easier to honestly just to emulate Caitlin's game. And again, if you're a young woman, you want to go bomb from three because you're most of the chances are you're not 6'5". So it's like it's like, okay, I can do a step back three, but I can't get the ball in the high post, do a turn, catch a shoulder fade, and then go score. Most people aren't built to do that. Like you have to really have that in your game and have the physical stature to do it. So it's the same thing. You could make the same argument with Breonna Stewart. Like most people aren't 6'5" and are able to do the same things that she can do versus like a Sabrina Ionescu. So it just more on a stylistic point. I feel like it's just easier to emulate Caitlin's game than it is to mimic Asia's. And I think that's where more people relate. And again, if you're a casual fan, you haven't really seen anybody bombing from threes the way she has. So it's like you're just tuning in to see her bomb from three. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if Asia was dunking, you could say, okay, people are tuning in to go see her dunk. But that's why I say from a stylistic standpoint, it's the casual fan doesn't really understand, post moves, significant post moves, and like the things that Asia's doing. Like her face up game is amazing, and she's able to do anything off the high post, mid post, etc. Now she just started shooting threes. So
yeah.
And then I'll let you kind of go, Jordan, if you have something more to. But that's kind of my take on that part.
I kind of agree with everything you said. I got a quick question for you. Like, does anybody agree with Sheila Johnson? Like, does anybody? I don't think I haven't heard anybody agree with that statement that she said.
Whitney, shout out to Whitney if you're listening. We bring you up on again. But Whitney agrees with Sheila. Whitney says she spoke 100% facts.
She agreed that the whole league should be on Time Magazine.
Says what Whitney.
Well, that's that. I mean,
bring her up. But Whitney said that.
She might be the only person on Earth that agrees with her. But yeah, I mean, it's just she's relatable because she's of smaller stature. She's closer to the average size of the rest of us, I mean, it reminded me, like, we talked off screen about how, like, Allen Iverson, people kind of forget about that, like, people really gravitated towards him because he was just a regular sized person. People talk about the culture and all that, but he was also like a relatively small human being going against like Shaq and Kobe, and that was really relatable. Like, like David versus Goliath. That's kind of what it is with Caitlin Clark as well. Small town girl from some no name school taking a bunch of people that we don't think are 4 or 5-star recruits, and making it to the finals twice. And it's not just that, but it's like she plays faster than every other player in the league. She's literally always running up and down the court. That's exciting. She's the only one that tries these crazy passes and takes these crazy shots. There's literally everything about her game is more exciting than every other player by far.
Yeah, and let me just say this because like I understand Raven. So to Raven's comment, she says we keep saying that she's smaller. Yeah, I mean she is. She's 6 foot, and I understand that she's 6 foot. But the average male in height is what? I forget, 5'10", 5'11" in the United States? So they're already comparable in size to her. And then the average female, or average woman rather, is 5'6", 5'7". Like, well, let me just Google that right quick. Average height of, like, let's do that right quick. So what I'm saying is she's more comparable. I understand that she's tall for her size, and I understand that. But what I'm saying is she's more comparable to the average person than somebody who's 6'5". Like that's just the first part of it. So I mean that's how I kind of see that. And again, just when it talks about their game. So okay, it's 5'4". So forgive me, it's 5'4".
I mean, she's still smaller than Asia, smaller than Nafisa, smaller than Stewie. Like,
yeah.
It's for people, it's more relatable. That's all it comes down to.
The average woman is more relatable to Chelsea Gray and Hannah Hidalgo. She wasn't the only one making those passes, and I never even brought up her passing. By the way, the only thing I brought up was her 3-point shooting. I didn't bring up anything about her passing ability. I brought up her 3-point shooting because yes, And we want
I
to
always
talk.
want to get into specifics, but
We can talk
she's
about
like,
Pinachero. We can talk about
I
Shoni Schimmel.
know,
We
like,
can talk about Sue Bird. This is not the only person that passes the ball like with flair. Again, but Sue Bird, what's the difference between Sue Bird and Caitlin? It's literally the 3-point game. And
I think it's more than like Caitlyn is literally always trying to fast break every possession, you
yeah,
know, for the most